When I said that the next video would be up in a flash at the end of the last one, you probably weren't expecting reviews of an actual series of Flash games. But with Flash support being removed from browsers soon, and Congregate looking to downsize and likely closing down in the future, I thought now would be a good time to look at a series that fits the stereotypical genre that you'd see made within the medium. One that also had a progression that fits the rise and decline of it. So Burrito Bison is a series of launcher games. This was a very popular genre back in the heyday of Flash games, and across 3 games we're going to see a simple concept being taken to degrees well beyond what you'd think they could go. It might not have been as popular as Learn to Fly or Toss the Turtle within its own genre, but I like it. And I think that should count for something. The first Burrito Bison follows a Lucha Libre wrestler with a bison mask, who, while out buying groceries, got sucked into a pack of gummy bears called Candyland. Now he has to fight his way out, the only way he knows how, by doing planchas to the outside of the ring. At the start of every run, you launch your character. Every interaction in Burrito Bison is done with the left mouse click, so in the case of launching, you click just at the right time to launch yourself forward. There's no real nuance here, you either hit or miss. If you miss, you jump over your ring opponent and fly into the scene. If you hit, you slam straight into the giant jawbreaker in the ring, giving you the momentum to fly further. Now, this doesn't really make much sense. If you slam straight into something in real life, that's it, your momentum stops there. If you don't slam into someone at the start of your launch, you should have more momentum going forward, but considering the wrestling flavor going on in this game, we'll have to suspend our disbelief when it comes to these things. Once you've successfully plancha'd to the outside of the ring, you have to cause as much damage as you can to everyone in your path, so pretty typical wrestling stuff when you think about it. In a typical launcher game, the goal is to move as far ahead as you can, inching closer to victory every launch. The further you get, the more money you get. In Burrito Bison, you get the most forward momentum by bouncing on top of gummy bears without touching the ground. Sounds easy enough at first, but you don't have much control of your movement once you're in the air. You have to trust that the bears are under you to catch you along the way. Your main means of control are by using body slams with the left mouse button. A body slam in this universe means strapping rockets on your hips and firing yourself straight down to the ground. Body slams mitigate how much you slow down when hitting the ground, but can also be used to help hit or dodge certain other gummies. You start off with a single charge of these, but there are upgrades giving you more body slams later in the game, and the more you bounce around and hurt gummy bears, the more your rockets recharge. When you slam into gummy bears, they drop money, and money can be exchanged for goods and services at the store. Between every launch, you can opt to go to the store and buy various upgrades that will help improve future launches. This is where the real meat of the game is. The secret behind launcher games is that they're more an active style of incremental games as opposed to the now more popular idle style. So you can buy more body slams, you can buy oil so you lose less speed when you hit the ground, better ring ropes so you can launch further, better gold gains, and power. That power is pretty important for a thing that I haven't mentioned yet. Once you've gotten enough upgrades, you can start slamming into progression walls. Literal ones. There's 2 factors that you need to get through these. The first is momentum. The faster you slam into a wall, the bigger the chance you'll bust through it. The other is how many of those upgrades you've bought. These lower the amount of speed required to get through a wall. So once you've busted through the wall, there's more ground to cover behind it. Except you lose more base speed from touching the ground and hitting gummy bears than in the past area. And the further you get into the game and the more upgrades you've bought, the higher the variety of gummy bears that you'll see as well, since they have their own upgrades that you can buy too. There's a ton of special gummies in the game, and each of them have their own special properties. You have the balloon gummy that traps you in a balloon where rapidly clicking makes you fly upwards, giving you better altitude and momentum to go onwards. The hang glider gummy that lets you fly upwards if you press the button at the right time. The rocket that you can take for a ride. You're supposed to slaughter the gummies near the ground with them for tons of money, but I always use them to fly straight up. Breaking through the sky barrier makes you come crashing down like a meteor, giving you a better gain in speed, and the rockets get you up high enough to trigger that most of the time. You've also got a pogo trick to show the gummies a little trick it stomps on so many of their friends, and a hot pepper that lets you roll over everyone rapidly. Beyond these, there's floating gummies in the sky, money gummies handling loads of money, and bomb gummies that propel you further ahead when you land on them. Oh, and police gummies who are assholes that slow you down if you touch them. They're the ones trying to keep you inside this candy land, even though keeping you locked up in here is ensuring that you'll squash more gummies in the long run. They should just let you go, honestly. All they want to do is lock you away so you're out of sight, and all you want to do is leave and not be here. Letting you go so you leave their dimension seems like the safest way to ensure that everyone gets what they want while minimizing the casualties. But who knows what kind of bureaucracy they're dealing with that's forcing them to keep arresting you. But anyway, suspension of disbelief. The cops are evil and are just trying to stop you from destroying everything by bringing you back to the start of the stage. Fine. There's 3 gates total in Burrito Bison, and once you've made it to the end of the final one, you've won. It takes about an hour to beat the game, so it definitely doesn't overstay its welcome. In terms of simple flash games, it's still one of the longer ones, and I'm sure that the developers felt like there was still more that they could do here, so they made a sequel. Burrito Bison is not having a great day. He just escaped from Candyland in the first game, and just as he's about to pay for his groceries, he realizes that he forgot his wallet back in the first game. So he's back, entering Candyland on his own volition, and this time, it's personal. In Burrito Bison's Revenge, the gummy bears flee in terror through ravaged terrain as you've come back to be a complete asshole to them. Even the cops want nothing to do with this one anymore. They're still around and they still slow you down if you land on them, but going back to the start of the stage to launch yourself and do it all over again for extra damage? This time the Bison is choosing to do this by himself. Structurally, Burrito Bison's Revenge is a much better game than the first. At the end of every launch, you see a list of smaller missions to keep you engaged with the action. Giving you all these smaller objectives to work on between the really big wins helps make the game feel better paced in general. Since even as you're failing upwards the way you usually do in a launcher game, you're also trying to squash 75 gummies or not touch the floor for a certain distance or interact with a special gummy during your run. These side missions net you some extra money that you can use to further upgrade yourself with. This was pretty common in Flash games at the time. With the popularity of the Xbox 360, it felt like every game was trying to think of a way to either have achievements or smaller challenges. And challenges come down to the same thing, just packaged differently. You also get this progress line at the bottom of the screen showing how far along you currently are, what your record distance is so far, and how far the next wall is. All minor things that give you a better feeling of making progress during runs where you'd otherwise be stomping around without purpose. And that feeling is pretty much required since there's way more upgrades to buy and larger distances to cover in this game. Which is fine so long as the amount of content and variety actually makes up for that increased distance, which I would say it does. There's a larger number of special gummies now, and even the returning ones feel like there's a bit more to them than the last time. Some of them are really a product of their time though. There's also more opponents in the ring this time. After you've beaten one of them up enough, you can purchase an all-new opponent to take their place as an upgrade. These new opponents have a different timing minigame display associated with them, slightly increasing the difficulty but in turn giving you a much better launch speed. It helps keep things fresh over a longer period of time. You still unlock stuff all the way to the end. It's not until you're pushing well into the final area or so that you start getting familiars that give you permanent passive buffs. These buffs help you speed up to the end in a way that feels pretty satisfying, kind of like a victory lap. One way you can really tell what era of Flash we're headed into though are the microtransactions. It's not the biggest deal in the world though. In fact, they're clumsily slapped on top of a finished game, letting you buy your way into more in-game money. So you can pay the developers to let you skip playing the game. It feels like a ripoff no matter how you look at it. Paying premium to skip ahead in a game that's under 2 hours just feels off. I understand paying to support the developers, But if you're getting something for it in return, you don't want it to feel like you're getting ripped off. I've supported tons of free-to-play games just to thank the developers for the hours that I've enjoyed their dumb little game. But if the thought ever crosses my mind that by paying money I'm skipping ahead, then I back out of possible purchases. But that just might be a me thing though. The general sentiment that I've seen with these purchases on forums come down to calling them rip-offs too though. But I think in general, it's hard to justify paying money for a 2-hour time waster so you can shorten the playtime by 5 minutes. When Flash games held out their hand for payment, it usually went one of two ways, and this is the good one. Companies like Zynga had twisted the concept of browser games around in a very sleazy way. But at least Burrito Bison's Revenge didn't turn into a badly balanced time sink that's constantly pressuring you to pay up. Surely I'm not foreshadowing anything here, that'd be crazy. Burrito Bison's Revenge is just a little time waster that you spend an hour or two on before moving on that gives you the option to maybe spend a little money on it. And the nice thing about Revenge is that it can also still go on for a little bit after you've beaten the game. Besides the regular campaign, there's still a survival mode where you launch yourself ahead to see how far you can go. By the time this unlocks, you'll have gotten maybe half of the upgrades or challenges done. So there's still a ton of ways to improve and do better. Though for most people, 2 hours is just about the right length for a Burrito Bison game. Oh yeah, I didn't mention it with the previous game, but these are the types of Flash games that actually save your progress, so you don't have to commit the full runtime in one go, which is nice. Burrito Bison Launcha Libre is where we get full sleazy. Burrito Bison is back at the store and a gummy bear steals his recipe book. Now he has to squash the real-life gummy bear invasion. Yeah, so I've never beaten Launcha Libre. Even for this review, I sank 7 hours into this game and all I did was beat the first boss. The third game wasn't made for the browser game audience, this one was made for mobile audiences. So every bit of sleaze you'd expect from an App Store game is here. Now I know for a fact that things used to be much, much worse. Tons of ways that you could get more loot faster have been removed since I last played. It doesn't seem like much has been put back in return either. So you just get a much slower game in general as a result. A lot of the typical things that you'd expect from a Burrito Bison game are here in this third outing as well. Except this time, you also get loot piñatas that are locked to a timer. Piñatas give out special rewards for checking in with the game every now and again. Usually when you get these is when you make your real progress, since they give you a ton of money. Often enough they'll give you passive familiars similar to the ones that you get in the second game, but this time they're single use with no option to use them either now or later. The moment you get them, you're using them. The worst thing about the piñata system is that they are tied to an ad viewing scheme where you could get 1 piñata now or 3 if you watch a bunch of advertisements first. The ad server didn't work for me back in the day and it still doesn't work now, so I'm stuck with the bare minimum either way. I guess I could buy the microtransactions that double my money income, or the microtransactions that removes the ads and gives me better rewards upright. Or the ones that improve the loot found in piñatas. They were really pressuring for sales in this game and none of it is a good look. Especially not when everything in the store just costs so much more money now. It takes ages to make any progress in Launcha Libre. So progress gets doled out at a pace where you always feel deprived of things, all while the game is flaunting microtransactions in your face. For the most part, the special gummies go back to the ones found in the first game too, functioning entirely the same too. So there's a few new ones here, like the equivalent of the Nyan Cat special gummy from the second game, which is now this underground digging minigame that you have some control over. I quite like that one actually. But it doesn't take long until you run into a new problem. In the previous 2 games, you went through the wall and then you'd make it into the next zone. In Launcha Libre, you make it through the wall, you have to make it through an entire layer of cake. This cake is solely there to slow you down and has its own upgrades so you can go through it faster. Once cake is removed, by going through it, it's permanently gone between runs. So its only real function is to stop you from getting to the next area for a few runs where you successfully went through the wall. Slowing down progress without anything meaningful in return. With this change, it basically means you have to bust through a wall several times before you finally hit the second wall of the same strength as the first one. Once you finally get through the cake section at enough speed to break through the secondary wall, you make it to the next section, and yeah, all walls are like this now. Most of the time I made progress through these layers was when I'd get one of those familiars that gives you a second boost when you come to a standstill. It's not fun when your progress is this strongly tied to a single random chance loot crate drop. Speaking of loot crate drops, there's another way to get item drops. Challenge missions also give you a bunch of drops now. Also, the amount of them that you can do has drastically been reduced to stop you from progressing too fast. And as you're doing these missions, you get all sorts of additional forms of money that does all sorts of stuff, and I'm not going to get into any of these because fuck this. Once your game reaches the freemium point of needing more than 2 forms of currency, your game can go fuck itself in my book. But wait, the frustrations go even further beyond any of this. If you act now, you can get a discount on this microtransaction. But act now, or else it'll disappear in just a few minutes. We're going to keep notifying you of this on the results screen between every run. So you better buy this microtransaction now with a discount. Yeah, anyway. You have more than one character this time around. Play enough and you unlock 2 side characters. One is a pineapple girl who uses a grappling hook to pull herself into gummies instead of body slamming down the normal way. It's kinda decent in how it lets you pull yourself ahead sometimes, but the targeting of it is pretty annoying. It often makes you miss special gummies a normal body slam would have let you hit to give priority to God knows what. It feels like you have a lot less direct control for very little gain with this character. The other is a guy in a chicken suit who will glide for a bit before slamming down. If you go fast enough, you're bound to crash into an inflated gummy in the sky with that, so you can repeatedly just climb into the sky layer to come crashing down as a meteor. Given how the walls and cake work in this game though, that doesn't automatically mean you're going to be making progress with that. The really nice thing though is that when you get to the end, instead of winning, there's a boss there. And every time you get to the end of the game, you do a little bit of damage to his health. So you have to repeatedly win in order to take him down. It took me about 5 hours to beat the first boss and open the portal to the second world of the game. I played for about 2 more hours in there before I just gave up because this game is hell and I hate it. The saddest part in all of this is that when the light goes out on Flash games and Congregate likely shuts its doors, Launcha Libre is going to be the only game to stick around through legitimate means, since it's a mobile game. It's the one game least deserving of sticking around. I would have been a lot more fine with a straight up paid Burrito Bison sequel that lasted 2 to 3 hours instead of all the freemium sleaze introduced with the third game. But hey, at the very least, if you still want to try out the first 2 Burrito Bison games before it all got sleazy, the games have been preserved on Flashpoint, which is what I used to play them this time around recording for the video. That's why I decided to focus on Burrito Bison right now. What with Flash disappearing, and one of the critical rules of my channel being that you should be able to play the games within 10 minutes, no issues. If a game cannot be emulated in English, I do not cover it. So at least with the preservation of Flash, you can still play the good games, and I'd say they're still worth playing. You might have to dig around to find interesting games. Maybe find some recommendation lists of what to play since the amount of games available through it is overwhelming. But there's some pretty important games on there like Alien Hominid, Meat Boy, Learn to Fly, Jamcraft, You Have to Burn the Rope, Achievement Unlocked. And I'm sure that people can think of other great games on there as well. Anyway, the next video might crash and drown. If it's not up before the end of the year, we may have to forget about it for a bit, since I'll be taking a break through January. If that's the case, then we're covering a Saga game first, and then after that, the one that I just hinted at just now. As always, this video has been brought to you by people supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like to become one of the people that you see scrolling on the screen right now, head over to patreon.com/AboveUp and I will, see ya.